Right now, a polar vortex is splitting in half above the Arctic, and what comes next could slam the United States with one of the most violent weather whiplashes we have seen in years. We are talking 90-degree heat in Texas on Monday, and by Friday, wind chills dropping below zero across the northern plains. That is a temperature swing of over 100 degrees in less than 5 days. And if you live anywhere east of the Rockies, this is going to affect you directly. So here is exactly what I need you to do. Stay with me for the next few minutes because I am going to walk you through city by city, state by state, day by day, exactly when this hits, how bad it gets, and what you need to do right now to get ready. And if you are watching from anywhere in the United States, drop your city in the comments right now because later in this video, I am covering over 270 cities with specific temperatures and conditions. Let us get into it. First, let me give you the headline that nobody else is talking about. Up in the stratosphere, roughly 100,000 feet above your head, something alarming is happening right now. A sudden stratospheric warming event is currently underway. That means the air way up in the stratosphere has warmed dramatically, and when that happens, it disrupts the polar vortex. Right now, the polar vortex is literally splitting into two separate pieces, two lobes, and that split is not healing anytime soon. This is critical because when the polar vortex splits, it sends massive lobes of Arctic air plunging southward into the mid-latitudes. That means us. That means the United States. And here is the timeline. It takes roughly 7 to 10 days for that disrupted stratospheric energy to work its way down to the surface level where we live and breathe. So what is happening in the stratosphere right now will be slamming into the eastern United States by next weekend. Remember that number, 7 to 10 days. We are on the clock. But before that Arctic air arrives, we have a dangerous, severe weather outbreak to get through this weekend. And I mean starting today. Right now, as you are watching this, a storm system is barreling across the central United States, and it is packing 2 full days of severe weather potential, including tornadoes. Let me break this down hour by hour so you know exactly when to be alert. Today, Friday, the Storm Prediction Center has issued a marginal risk, that is a level 1 out of 5, for severe weather across parts of Ohio, far northeastern Kentucky, West Virginia, southwestern Pennsylvania, and small sections of Virginia and western Maryland. There is a 2% probability of a tornado within 25 miles of any point in that risk area. Now, 2% might sound small, but in weather forecasting, that is enough to put a tornado warning on your phone. The timing is tight. Your highest risk window is between 3 in the afternoon and 5 in the afternoon Eastern Time. That is when a discrete supercell could pop up along a line of storms and produce a brief but dangerous tornado. After that, the line pushes east and the tornado threat diminishes, but damaging winds stick around through the evening hours. We are talking gusts of 40, possibly even 50 miles per hour. Now, simultaneously, while those storms are firing in the Ohio Valley, look what is happening in the Northeast. Heavy wet snow is moving into interior New England. We are talking upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Some of these areas could see thundersnow tonight. Yes, thundersnow, lightning inside a snowstorm. That tells you just how much energy is loaded into this system. Snowfall totals for this first round will range from 3 to 5 inches. With isolated pockets of 6 to 7 inches across the higher terrain of northern New England. And here is the twist. We are not done after today, not even close, because Sunday brings round 2, and it is even more dangerous. Do not skip ahead because what I am about to show you for Sunday is the part that has me most concerned. By Sunday, a new storm system develops, and the Storm Prediction Center has already elevated the risk. We now have a slight risk that is level 2 out of 5 for severe weather across sections of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. That means a 15% probability of severe weather within 25 miles of any given point. The primary threats are large hail, damaging winds, and yes, tornadoes. Here is what is driving this. Cold air aloft is going to be sitting right on top of the storm zone. When you have cold air in the upper levels of the atmosphere directly above warm, unstable air near the surface, you create what meteorologists call steep lapse rates. And steep lapse rates are the recipe for big hail. I would not be surprised if we see hailstones the size of golf balls in some of these storms on Sunday. The storm fuel is there, the energy is there, the cold air aloft is there. Everything lines up for an ugly day. The timing for Sunday is this. Thunderstorms begin forming in the morning hours across Ohio, western Pennsylvania, and into southern Illinois and southern Indiana. Through the afternoon, these storms intensify and begin to organize. By Sunday evening, a low-pressure system spins up, and this is when the tornado threat peaks. We could see a discrete supercell break away from the main line and produce a significant tornado. The storms will then drift into the overnight hours Sunday night into Monday morning, so if you are in the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, or the Central Appalachians, you need your severe weather plan ready before you go to bed Saturday night. Now, here is something I promised you earlier, and I am delivering on it right now. Let me show you the second round of snow that hits the Northeast on Sunday because it stacks right on top of the first round. Sunday morning, another clipper system dives in from the north. This one has even more cold air involved. The snow is heavier. The accumulation zones are broader. Interior New England gets hammered again, and this time it is not just the mountains. The snow line drops further south. We are talking freezing rain mixing in across southern Vermont, parts of Massachusetts, and into the lower elevations of New Hampshire. By Sunday evening, that same system undergoes coastal development. What does that mean? It means the storm regenerates as it hits the Atlantic moisture, and when that happens, the snow event extends all the way from Sunday through Monday and potentially into Tuesday morning. That is a long-duration winter event. You could be shoveling for 2 straight days. And are we done then? No. Here comes another system next Wednesday morning. More snow pushes into the picture, and this one tracks further south. We could see snow almost all the way down to New York City and Boston. The models are showing a 998 millibar low-pressure system next Wednesday evening. That is a strong storm. That is strong enough to deliver a quick-hitting but intense snowstorm across Maine and northern New England. Then that moves out, and guess what? Another system arrives next Friday. That is 5 separate snow events between now and the end of March for the Northeast. 5. The Euro ensemble model, which blends 51 different forecast members into an average, shows a strong snow signal persisting across the Adirondacks, Vermont, New Hampshire, and all of Maine through the end of the month. Even Boston shows a signal for a few inches of accumulation. Temperature anomalies for the period from next Tuesday through the last morning of March show the Northeast running anywhere from 5 to 12 degrees below average. Winter is not done with you, not even close. Now, I want to take a quick detour and explain something that I think will help you understand why this pattern is so stubborn and why it keeps producing these extreme swings. Because if you understand the mechanics, you will be better prepared for what is coming. Think of the polar vortex like a spinning top. When the top is spinning fast and stable, it stays in one place over the North Pole and keeps all the cold air contained in the Arctic. That is a strong polar vortex. But when something disrupts that spin, like a sudden stratospheric warming event, the top starts to wobble. And when it wobbles enough, it can split into 2 separate spinning pieces. Those 2 pieces migrate away from the pole, and each one drags a massive reservoir of Arctic air with it. One lobe typically drifts toward Siberia and the other toward North America. That is exactly what is happening right now. And here is the critical detail. Once the polar vortex splits, it does not just snap back together overnight. It can take weeks to recover. Sometimes it does not fully recover at all for the rest of the winter and spring season. The models right now are not showing a quick recovery. The 2 lobes are remaining separate as we push through the end of March and into April. That tells me this pattern of Arctic air surges is going to continue for at least 2 to 3 more weeks. Now, some of you might be wondering, what about the sudden stratospheric warming event itself? How rare is this? Well, major sudden stratospheric warming events happen roughly once every couple of years on average. They are not unprecedented. But the timing of this one, occurring in mid to late March, makes it particularly impactful because it extends winter conditions well into what should be the beginning of spring. The lag between the stratospheric event and the surface impacts is about 7 to 10 days, which is why we are only now starting to feel the effects of what happened in the stratosphere a week or so ago. And the effects will continue to cascade downward for the next couple of weeks. This is also why the GFS model and the European model, the 2 most trusted long-range weather models in the world, are both in agreement on this pattern continuing. When both major global models agree, that gives us high confidence in the forecast. And right now, both models are screaming the same thing: more cold blasts, More extreme temperature swings, more winter weather events, more severe weather as the warm and cold air masses collide. One more thing on the science before we move on. That heat dome in the southwest is not just a random warm spot. It is directly connected to the disrupted polar vortex. When Arctic air surges south on one side of the jet stream, warm air has to go somewhere. It gets pumped northward and upward on the other side. That is why the west is baking while the east freezes. They are two sides of the same atmospheric coin, and they are feeding each other. The stronger the cold blast in the east, the stronger the heat dome in the west, and vice versa. It is a feedback loop that maintains itself as long as the polar vortex remains disrupted. This also explains why the severe weather threat increases as we head into April. When you have that much warm, moist air being pumped northward from the Gulf and it collides with that cold, dense Arctic air dropping south, the energy release is enormous. That energy manifests as thunderstorms, and when conditions align just right, which this pattern is setting up perfectly, those thunderstorms become supercells capable of producing tornadoes, giant hail, and devastating straight-line winds. So keep all of that in your back pocket as we move through the rest of this forecast. Everything is connected. The polar vortex split, the stratospheric warming, the heat dome, the cold blasts, the severe weather, the snow. It is all one giant atmospheric system working in concert. And it is going to be the dominant weather story across the United States for at least the next 3 weeks. Now let me pause here and tell you something important. If you are still watching, you are about to get the most valuable part of this entire video, because right now I am going to walk you through the wild temperature roller coaster that is about to hit the entire country day by day, and I am going to cover over 270 cities. This is the part you do not want to miss. Grab a pen, grab your phone, screenshot this if you need to. Here we go. Let us start with where we are right now, today, Friday. The heat dome is still firmly in place across the southern and western United States. Texas is seeing high temperatures in the upper 90s. Oklahoma is right there with them. Parts of Kansas are pushing toward 90. And the Southwest, we are talking 105 degrees and higher. That is record-breaking heat for mid-March. Meanwhile, the northern tier of the country is sitting in the 30s and 40s. That temperature contrast is what is fueling these severe storms. Now, here is your city-by-city breakdown for conditions right now across the United States. And I want you to listen carefully because your city might be on this list, starting in the Northeast. New York City, 45 degrees and sunny. Boston, 43 degrees with passing clouds. Philadelphia, 47 degrees and partly sunny. Pittsburgh, 53 degrees and sunny. Albany, New York, 40 degrees and partly sunny. Hartford, Connecticut, 41 degrees and sunny. Burlington, Vermont, 34 degrees and partly sunny. Portland, Maine, 39 degrees with passing clouds. Manchester, New Hampshire, 41 degrees with passing clouds. Providence, Rhode Island, 42 degrees with passing clouds. Syracuse, 37 degrees with broken clouds. Rochester, New York, 37 degrees with light rain and cloudy skies. Buffalo, 40 degrees with light rain and mostly cloudy skies. Bridgeport, Connecticut, 40 degrees and sunny. Stamford, 44 degrees with passing clouds. Moving into the Mid-Atlantic, Washington, D.C., 48 degrees with passing clouds. Baltimore, 49 degrees with passing clouds. Annapolis, 48 degrees and sunny. Richmond, Virginia, 51 degrees with passing clouds. Virginia Beach, 53 degrees and sunny. Norfolk, 53 degrees with passing clouds. Wilmington, Delaware, 47 degrees and sunny. Dover, 49 degrees and sunny. Atlantic City, 50 degrees and sunny. Trenton, 45 degrees and sunny. Newark, 45 degrees and partly sunny. Jersey City, 45 degrees and partly sunny. Down into the southeast now. Atlanta, 52 degrees and sunny. Charlotte, 56 degrees and partly sunny. Raleigh, 55 degrees with passing clouds. Charleston, South Carolina, 56 degrees and sunny. Savannah, 57 degrees and sunny. Jacksonville, Florida, 59 degrees with passing clouds. Orlando, 64 degrees and sunny. Tampa, 67 degrees and sunny. Miami, 67 degrees with scattered clouds. Fort Lauderdale, 65 degrees and partly sunny. West Palm Beach, 71 degrees with broken clouds. Key West, 86 degrees and pleasantly warm. Nashville, 63 degrees with scattered clouds. Memphis, 63 degrees with scattered clouds. Knoxville, 51 degrees with passing clouds. Chattanooga, 54 degrees with scattered clouds. Birmingham, Alabama, 63 degrees with passing clouds. Montgomery, 54 degrees and sunny. Mobile, 60 degrees and sunny. Tallahassee, 54 degrees and sunny. Pensacola, 62 degrees and sunny. Let us swing over to the Midwest. Chicago, 56 degrees with broken clouds. Detroit, 50 degrees with light rain and overcast skies. Indianapolis, 54 degrees and partly sunny. Columbus, Ohio, 55 degrees with broken clouds. Cleveland, 56 degrees and overcast. Cincinnati, 54 degrees and sunny. Milwaukee, 52 degrees and sunny. Minneapolis, 44 degrees with passing clouds. St. Paul, 46 degrees and partly sunny. Des Moines, 61 degrees with scattered clouds. Kansas City, Missouri, 57 degrees and sunny. St. Louis, 62 degrees and partly sunny. Omaha, 57 degrees and sunny. Grand Rapids, Michigan, 56 degrees with broken clouds. Green Bay, 39 degrees and sunny. Madison, Wisconsin, 54 degrees with broken clouds. Dayton, Ohio, 57 degrees with broken clouds. Akron, 55 degrees and sunny. Toledo, 55 degrees and overcast. Fort Wayne, 56 degrees and overcast. South Bend, 53 degrees and partly sunny. Rockford, Illinois, 56 degrees and overcast. Peoria, 54 degrees and sunny. Springfield, Illinois, 60 degrees and sunny. Bloomington, Indiana, 62 degrees and sunny. Evansville, 62 degrees and sunny. Cedar Rapids, 53 degrees and sunny. Sioux Falls, 48 degrees with scattered clouds. Fargo, 36 degrees with fog. Duluth, 43 degrees and sunny. Rochester, Minnesota, 49 degrees and sunny. Now to the Southern Plains where the heat is the real story. Dallas, 62 degrees and sunny. Fort Worth, 61 degrees and sunny. Houston, 63 degrees with scattered clouds. San Antonio, 63 degrees and sunny. Austin, 60 degrees and sunny. Oklahoma City, 58 degrees with passing clouds. Tulsa, 62 degrees and sunny. Waco, 62 degrees and sunny. Lubbock, 54 degrees with passing clouds. Amarillo, 60 degrees and sunny. Midland, 70 degrees and sunny. El Paso, 56 degrees and sunny. Corpus Christi, 60 degrees with scattered clouds. Laredo, 65 degrees and sunny. Brownsville, 68 degrees and sunny. Abilene, 66 degrees and sunny. Wichita Falls, 60 degrees and sunny. Wichita, Kansas, 60 degrees and sunny. Little Rock, 64 degrees with passing clouds. Shreveport, 63 degrees with passing clouds. Baton Rouge, 61 degrees and sunny. New Orleans, 62 degrees and sunny. Over to the Mountain West. Denver, 55 degrees with passing clouds. Colorado Springs, 59 degrees with passing clouds. Boulder, 61 degrees and sunny. Salt Lake City, 50 degrees and sunny. Boise, 51 degrees and clear. Albuquerque, 52 degrees and sunny. Santa Fe, 48 degrees and sunny. Phoenix, 70 degrees and sunny. Tucson, 64 degrees and sunny. Las Vegas, 69 degrees and clear. Reno, 45 degrees and clear. Billings, Montana, 54 degrees and partly sunny. Missoula, 48 degrees and partly sunny. Great Falls, 57 degrees and sunny. Cheyenne, 52 degrees and sunny. Casper, 54 degrees and sunny. Rapid City, 52 degrees and sunny. Flagstaff, Arizona, 31 degrees and sunny. Prescott, 48 degrees and sunny. Sedona, 66 degrees and sunny, and the West Coast. Los Angeles, 64 degrees and clear. San Francisco, 61 degrees with passing clouds. San Diego, 61 degrees with passing clouds. Seattle, 54 degrees with light rain and overcast skies. Portland, Oregon, 54 degrees with passing clouds. Sacramento, 54 degrees and clear. San Jose, 60 degrees with passing clouds. Fresno, 62 degrees with passing clouds. Bakersfield, 64 degrees and clear. Long Beach, 63 degrees and clear. Oakland, 60 degrees with fog. Santa Barbara, 57 degrees and clear. Monterey, 60 degrees and clear. Eureka, California, 44 degrees and clear. Eugene, Oregon, 46 degrees with passing clouds. Spokane, 55 degrees and partly sunny. Tacoma, 53 degrees with light rain and overcast. And do not forget Alaska. Anchorage, 8 degrees with passing clouds. Fairbanks, negative 23 degrees with passing clouds. Juneau, 25 degrees and partly cloudy. Prudhoe Bay, negative 36 degrees with ice fog. Nome, negative 21 degrees and clear. Utqiagvik, negative 27 degrees with passing clouds. And Hawaii, Honolulu, 75 degrees with light rain and mostly cloudy skies. Hilo, 71 degrees with passing clouds. Kailua Kona, 75 degrees and overcast. Now that you have seen where we are right now, let me walk you through what happens next, because this is where the story gets intense. And honestly, this next part is the reason I made this video today. Monday brings the first cold shot. It is not the big one. Think of it as the warning shot. Morning lows drop into the 60s across the southern United States and the northern tier stays frozen. But Monday afternoon, temperatures bounce right back. The south will climb back into the 80s. Parts of the southwest will still be touching the 90s and even 100 degrees. But across the northern plains and Great Lakes, you are stuck in the 40s and 50s. That contrast tells you the atmosphere is loaded like a spring ready to snap. Tuesday morning is when the first real punch lands. A cold blast drops into the upper Midwest and pushes through the Northeast. Morning lows plummet. Wind chill values make it feel even colder. If you are in the Ohio Valley or the Great Lakes region, Tuesday morning you are going to feel it. But here is the wild part. By Tuesday afternoon, it warms right back up again across the South. Texas and Oklahoma wake up in the 60s and climb right back into the 80s and 90s by afternoon. The Southwest stays locked in at 90 to 100 plus degrees. It is like two different seasons are happening at the same time, separated by just a few hundred miles. Wednesday morning, temperatures drop again across the north. Then Wednesday afternoon, another heat dome builds. Those 90s return. Parts of the Southwest push past 100 degrees again. Even southern Canada sees temperatures in the 60s from this heat dome. It is a massive warm anomaly, and it is feeding energy into the atmosphere that will eventually clash with what is coming. Thursday stays warm across the South. Morning lows in the 60s, highs back in the 80s and 90s. But across the far Northeast, you stay cold. A nice cool blast keeps temperatures chilly for New England and upstate New York. Thursday afternoon, the heat surges again, 80s, 90s, and triple digits in the Southwest, and then Friday. This is when the second cold blast arrives, and this one is significantly stronger than what came on Monday and Tuesday. Friday morning, freezing temperatures plunge southward across the northern half of the country. Wind chill values drop well below zero in the northern plains. Friday afternoon, even your high temperatures stay in the frozen range across the northern tier. Much of the United States sits in the 40s, but directly south of that line, it is 70s and 80s. The temperature gradient is insane. You could drive 3 hours south and gain 40 degrees. Saturday, the cold intensifies. Freezing temperatures push even further south. The wind chill is nasty. It has not changed from what the models have been showing for days. This is a locked-in pattern. A high-confidence cold blast. And then Sunday, the transition from March into April. And here is where the polar vortex makes its grand return. Remember what I told you at the beginning? The polar vortex is split into two lobes. It has not healed. It has not come back together. And as we enter April, those lobes send another massive surge of Arctic air southward. Now let me explain why April could be even more dramatic than what we are seeing right now. As we go through the end of March and into early April, the pattern shifts. A big trough digs down across the western United States. A ridge builds in the east. And when you get a trough in the west and a ridge in the east, and then that pattern flips, you get explosive storm development. Low-pressure systems start cutting from the southwest to the northeast. The southerly flow increases. Moisture from the Gulf of Mexico surges northward. Thermodynamics go through the roof. And that means severe weather season kicks into high gear. But here is the catch. At the same time that moisture is surging north, the polar vortex is still delivering Arctic air from Canada. So what happens when tropical Gulf moisture collides with Arctic air? You get violent storms, you get tornadoes, you get massive hail, you get blizzards on the northern edge and severe thunderstorms on the southern edge. It is a battle zone, and that battle zone will set up right across the middle of the country. The first 10 to 15 days of April are looking cold across the northern United States. The southern United States will stay warmer, above average even, but that just means more fuel for storms. The climate forecast system, which is our long-range guidance, confirms this pattern. Cold blasts keep coming. Each one brings the potential for snow, freezing rain, and more of this wild temperature roller coaster. And let me be specific about what that means. When those cold blasts arrive, they create deep troughs in the jet stream. Those deep troughs are followed by high ridges. That amplified pattern means more extreme weather on both ends, more record heat under the ridges, more record cold under the troughs, more snowstorms, more severe weather outbreaks, more of everything. Now let me go back to the Northeast because I know a lot of you watching are up there dealing with this winter that will not quit. Here is the honest truth. Between now and April 1st, the Euro ensemble shows a massive snow signal across the Adirondacks, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. We are talking potentially significant additional snowfall on top of what you have already received, and even areas further south, including the state of New York, northern Pennsylvania, and yes, even Boston, show a signal for additional snow accumulation. Temperature anomalies across the Northeast are running 5 to 12 degrees below average through the end of March. That is not a subtle difference. That is winter holding on with both hands and refusing to let go. The pattern that has kept you cold for the last 5 months is not leaving. These little clipper systems keep diving down from the north one after another like waves crashing on a beach. Each one brings a shot of snow or a wintry mix, and the cold air between systems keeps temperatures well below where they should be for late March. But here is the potential light at the end of the tunnel. As we push past April 1st, the models are showing signs that a ridge could build across the eastern United States. That would bring warmer air, calmer conditions, and a real taste of spring. But we are not there yet. We have to survive the next 10 to 14 days first. Now let me talk about something that I think a lot of people are missing in this forecast. The heat in the Southwest is not just uncomfortable, it is historic. We are seeing temperatures of 105 degrees and higher across parts of Arizona, Southern California desert regions, and the lower elevations of Nevada and Utah. In mid-March, Phoenix hit 70 degrees today. Palm Springs is at 80 degrees, Death Valley is at 67 degrees and climbing, Scottsdale 66 degrees, Mesa 72 degrees, Tucson 64 degrees. These numbers are running well above average, and the heat dome that is driving them is massive and persistent. That heat dome is actually part of the story because it is acting like a wall. It pushes the jet stream north over the western United States, which forces the cold troughs to dig deeper on the eastern side. So the hotter it gets out west, the colder the blasts that hit the east. They are two sides of the same coin. If you are in the Southwest, stay hydrated. Check on elderly neighbors. Make sure pets have water and shade. These temperatures in March are not normal, and your body may not be fully adjusted to heat yet after winter. If you are in the Northeast and the Great Lakes, stock up on ice melt and make sure your snow removal equipment is still accessible. Do not put away your winter gear yet. Seriously, I know it is almost April. I know you are tired of it. But this pattern is not done with you. If you are in the central United States, the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, the Southern Plains, your focus needs to be on severe weather preparedness for this weekend. And then again, as we get into April, make sure your weather radio is working. Make sure you have a plan for where to go if a tornado warning is issued. Interior room, lowest floor, away from windows, you know the drill. Now, here is something I want to address directly because I see the comments every single video. People asking, is this normal? Is this climate change? Is this just how weather works? Here is what I will tell you. Weather patterns fluctuate. The polar vortex has disrupted before. Sudden stratospheric warming events have happened before. But the intensity of these swings, the magnitude of the temperature contrasts, the persistence of the heat dome in March, these are the kinds of signals that climate scientists have been watching closely. What I can tell you from a forecasting perspective is that this pattern is locked in for at least the next 2 weeks, and there is strong model agreement on that. So whatever your views on the bigger picture, the practical reality is the same. Prepare for extreme swings. Prepare for severe weather. Prepare for a bumpy transition from March into April. Let me also mention what the GFS model is showing for the longer range because it adds an important piece to this puzzle. As we run forward through next week, we see those little dips in the trough scooting across the Great Lakes and the Northeast. Each one brings a shot of cool air and the potential for snow or mixed precipitation. Then as we get into the middle of next week, a big system flies across Canada, dragging a lot of cold air with it. That produces another cool down across the eastern United States. Then things get interesting. As we approach the last couple days of March, the GFS shows a low-pressure system cutting across the country from southwest to northeast, and that is a classic severe weather setup. And then on April 1st, another big system cuts across the plains. The flow changes direction. Instead of going west to east in a zonal pattern, it shifts to a more meridional flow, meaning it starts going from south to north. That pulls Gulf moisture northward, increases storm fuel, and sets the stage for a much more active severe weather season. The Euro ensemble confirms this shift. The upper-level pattern, up around 35 to 40,000 feet, shows the flow transitioning from that flat zonal pattern to an amplified pattern with big ridges and deep troughs. And at the very end of the model run, a big, tall, spiking ridge shows up over the central to eastern United States with a trough digging out west. That is the setup for significant severe weather. That is the setup for tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds across the middle of the country. So as we head into April, I want you to be mentally prepared for an increase in severe weather activity. This is not fear-mongering. This is pattern recognition. The ingredients are lining up, and the models have been consistent on this for several days now. Let me give you a few more cities and states that are at risk for severe weather this weekend because I want to make sure nobody misses this. For today, Friday, at-risk cities and states include Charleston, West Virginia, Morgantown, West Virginia, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Akron, Ohio, Canton, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, Lexington, Kentucky, and the surrounding areas. Your window is this afternoon through the evening. Watch for hail, damaging winds, and the small but real chance of a brief tornado for Sunday. The risk area expands. At-risk cities include Indianapolis, Indiana, Cincinnati, Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, Louisville, Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, Springfield, Illinois, Peoria, Illinois, Terre Haute, Indiana, Evansville, Indiana, Bloomington, Indiana, Fort Wayne, Indiana, and portions of southern Illinois and southern Indiana. Large hail is the primary threat. Damaging winds are secondary. And tornadoes cannot be ruled out, especially Sunday evening as the low pressure intensifies. Do not forget to come back Sunday for my updated forecast, because by then the short-range models will be locked in and I can give you much more precise timing and location information for the severe weather. Now here's something else I want to highlight for those of you in the transition zone between the cold air and the warm air. You know who you are. You are the ones who wake up and it is 35 degrees, and by afternoon it is 65 degrees, and then the next morning it is back to 30. That freeze-thaw cycle is murder on infrastructure. Roads crack, potholes form, pipes that barely survived winter can burst when temperatures swing wildly. If you have not checked your outdoor faucets and pipes recently, do it today. If you have not checked your roof for damage from the winter storms, do it before the next round arrives. Let me give you a few more temperature details for the coming days to really drive this home. For the Southwest, where the heat dome is parked, expect highs remaining in the 90s to over 105 degrees through the first half of next week. Phoenix, Tucson, Las Vegas, Palm Springs, these cities are going to be hot, very hot, and the heat does not break until the pattern shifts, which is not looking likely until we get deeper into April. For Texas and Oklahoma, highs in the 80s and 90s persist through most of next week. But when those cold blasts arrive, morning lows can drop by 30 to 40 degrees overnight. Dallas goes from a high of 85 to a morning low of 45. Oklahoma City goes from 90 to the 50s. These are not gradual changes. These are abrupt, jarring temperature swings. For the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley, the battle zone, you are caught between the warmth trying to push north and the cold air trying to push south. Expect temperatures swinging from the 30s at night to the 60s during the day, with each cold blast dropping you back into the 20s and 30s. Wind chill makes it feel even worse. For the Northeast, you are cold and you are staying cold. Morning lows in the 20s and 30s. Afternoon highs barely cracking the 40s in many locations. Plattsburgh, New York is at 32 degrees right now. Burlington, Vermont is at 34. Concord, New Hampshire is at 30. These are not spring temperatures. These are midwinter temperatures, and they are going to persist through the end of the month. For the Southeast, you are the winners in this pattern, relatively speaking. Temperatures are recovering from a cool spell earlier in the week. Expect highs in the 50s and 60s across most of the region, with Florida pushing into the upper 60s and low 70s. Key West is sitting pretty at 86 degrees. but even you are not immune. Those severe weather threats on Sunday could clip parts of the Tennessee Valley and the southern Appalachians. For the northern plains and the upper Midwest, bundle up. You are getting the brunt of each cold blast. Morning lows in the 20s and 30s with wind chill values in the teens and single digits during the worst of it. Bismarck, North Dakota is at 36 degrees right now. Fargo is at 36 with fog. International Falls is at 31. Pierre, South Dakota is at 45. These temperatures will drop further as each cold blast arrives. Now, I want to bring this all together with the big picture because I think it is important to understand why this is happening and what it means for the weeks ahead. The polar vortex is split. That is the root cause of everything I have just described. When the polar vortex is strong and intact, it keeps the cold air bottled up in the Arctic. When it splits, that cold air escapes and plunges southward. And because the split is not healing, because the two lobes are not showing signs of coming back together anytime soon, we are going to keep seeing these cold surges well into April. At the same time, the heat dome in the southwest is not going anywhere. It is persistent and strong. So we have two competing forces, Arctic cold pushing south and subtropical heat pushing north, and where they collide is where the action happens. The severe weather, the snow, the wild temperature swings, the crazy weather that makes you question what month it is. The first 10 to 15 days of April will feature more of this pattern. More cold blasts, more heat surges, more severe weather threats, more snow for the northern tier. The climate forecast system shows it clearly. This is not a one-week event. This is a multi-week pattern that is going to dominate the weather story across the United States through at least mid-April. And here is what that means for you specifically. If you are planning outdoor events in early April, have a backup plan. If you are starting your garden, hold off on planning anything frost-sensitive. If you have travel plans, check the forecast before you go. If you live in Tornado Alley or the Midwest, make sure your storm shelter is accessible and your emergency kit is stocked. This is not about fear. This is about preparation. The weather does not care about your plans, but if you are prepared, you can handle whatever comes. Now, before I wrap up, let me give you a quick preview of what is coming in my next video, because here is what I did not get into today that is going to be critical. As that pattern shifts in early April, the severe weather potential ramps up significantly. I am talking about a possible multi-day severe weather outbreak across the central United States in the first 2 weeks of April. The ingredients are there, the pattern supports it, and the models are starting to hint at some very intense systems. I will have the full breakdown, including specific timing, locations, and risk levels in my next update. Do not miss that one. It could be one of the most important forecasts of the spring season. Also, for those of you in the Northeast who are wondering when winter finally ends for you, I will have a detailed breakdown of the April temperature outlook and when that ridge might finally build in and bring you some relief. That is coming in the next video as well, so make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you have notifications turned on. And again, drop your city in the comments below. Tell me where you are watching from so I can make sure your area is covered in the next update. The more specific you are, the better I can serve you with accurate, localized forecasts. Here is the bottom line. The polar vortex is split and it is not healing. That means Arctic air keeps surging into the United States through at least mid-April. The heat dome in the southwest is persistent and record-breaking. The clash between these two air masses is going to produce severe weather, snow, and extreme temperature swings for weeks to come. This weekend, we have 2 days of severe weather, including tornado threats. The Northeast has 5 separate snow events between now and the end of March, and the transition into April looks increasingly volatile. Stay alert, stay prepared, and stay with me, because this weather pattern is going to keep delivering surprises, and I will be right here breaking it all down for you city by city, day by day, storm by storm. For everybody across the country, please take this seriously. Check on your neighbors, make sure your family knows the plan, and remember, the best time to prepare is before the storm arrives, not during it. Now, I know some of you are sitting there thinking, okay, I got the big picture, but what about my specific city next week? I hear you. So let me go even deeper on the city by city breakdown for what is coming. This is the part where you want to pay very close attention. Monday highs, let us start in the south. Dallas, Texas, expect a high around 83 degrees. San Antonio, 81. Houston, 79. Austin, 78. Oklahoma City, 75. Tulsa, 76. Little Rock, Arkansas, 72. Memphis, Tennessee, 73. Nashville, 70. Birmingham, Alabama, 68. Atlanta, Georgia, 65. Charlotte, North Carolina, 63. Jacksonville, Florida, 72. Tampa, 75. Miami, 78. New Orleans, 74. Baton Rouge, 73. Now compare that to the north. Chicago, 48. Detroit, 46. Cleveland, 44. Minneapolis, 38. Milwaukee, 42. Grand Rapids, 44. Green Bay, 36. Duluth, 32. Fargo, 30. Bismarck, 28. Sioux Falls, 36. Des Moines, 48. Omaha, 46. Kansas City, 54. Indianapolis, 52. Columbus, Ohio, 50. Pittsburgh, 48. Buffalo, 38. Syracuse, 36. Albany, New York, 34. Boston, 40. New York City, 44. Philadelphia, 46. Washington, D.C., 52. Baltimore, 50. See that divide? The South is in the 70s and 80s, while the North is in the 30s and 40s. That is a 50-degree difference across just a few hundred miles. Tuesday morning lows are where it gets nasty. The cold blast drops morning temperatures dramatically across the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. Minneapolis, 22 degrees. Green Bay, 20. Duluth, 18. Fargo, 16. Bismarck, 14. International Falls, 12. Marquette, Michigan, 20. Traverse City, 24. Grand Rapids, 28. Chicago, 30. Milwaukee, 26. Detroit, 30. Cleveland, 28, Buffalo, 26, Syracuse, 24, Albany, 22, Burlington, Vermont, 18, Concord, New Hampshire, 20, Portland, Maine, 24, Boston, 28. Now add wind chill to those numbers. When the wind is blowing 15 to 25 miles per hour, those low 20s feel like single digits. Those teens feel like below zero. That is dangerous cold, especially for anyone who has already put away their heavy winter clothing thinking spring had arrived. But Tuesday afternoon, the South bounces right back. Dallas hits 85, Houston hits 82, San Antonio 84, Oklahoma City 78, Phoenix 92, Tucson 88, Las Vegas 84, Palm Springs 94, Bakersfield 82, Los Angeles 74, San Diego 70. Those are summer numbers in some of these cities, and it is still March. Wednesday brings another twist. The cold air retreats slightly in the morning, but the northern tier stays chilly. Minneapolis morning low 26, Chicago 32, Detroit 30, but by Wednesday afternoon the second heat dome builds. Dallas 87, Houston 84, San Antonio 86. Parts of the Southwest push past 105 again. Phoenix could flirt with 95, Tucson 90, Las Vegas 87. Even places like Denver start to warm back up into the 60s. And here is the number that should catch your attention. Parts of southern Canada see temperatures in the 60s from this heat dome. That is how far north the warmth reaches. It is extraordinary for this time of year. Thursday continues the warm trend in the south while the northeast stays locked in cold. New York City, high of 48. Boston, 44. Burlington, Vermont, 38. But Nashville, 74. Atlanta, 68. Dallas, 88. Houston, 85. The Southwest remains scorching. And this sets up the ultimate clash for Friday. Friday is the day everything changes. The second major cold blast arrives, and this one means business. Let me walk you through the Friday morning lows because these numbers are going to shock people. Bismarck, North Dakota, 8 degrees. Fargo, 10. Minneapolis, 14. Duluth, 8. International Falls, 2 degrees. Pierre, South Dakota, 12. Sioux Falls, 16. Omaha, 22. Des Moines, 20. Chicago, 24. Milwaukee, 20. Green Bay, 14. Grand Rapids, 22. Detroit, 26, Cleveland, 24, Buffalo, 20, Syracuse, 18, Albany, New York, 16, Burlington, Vermont, 12, Concord, New Hampshire, 14, Bangor, Maine, 12. These are January level temperatures hitting in late March going into April. And when you factor in the wind, which will be howling at 20 to 35 miles per hour behind the cold front, wind chill values drop well below zero across the northern plains and upper Midwest. We are talking feels like temperatures of -5 to -15 in parts of North Dakota, Minnesota, and northern Wisconsin. Friday afternoon highs tell an equally shocking story. Much of the northern United States stays below freezing. The Dakotas, teens and 20s for highs. Minnesota, 20s and low 30s. Wisconsin, 20s and 30s. Michigan, Upper Peninsula, 20s. Meanwhile, just a few hundred miles south, Dallas is still in the 70s. San Antonio, 75. Houston, 72. The Southwest continues to bake. Phoenix, 93. Las Vegas, 85. It is genuinely two different seasons happening simultaneously. Saturday morning, the cold digs even deeper. Freezing temperatures push further south into the Ohio Valley and the Tennessee Valley. Nashville could see morning lows in the upper 20s, Louisville low 30s, Lexington low 30s, even Atlanta could dip into the upper 30s. The wind chill across the northern half of the country is brutal. This is a full-blown Arctic invasion in what should be early spring. Saturday afternoon, the pattern holds. Northern United States stays cold. Southern United States stays warm. The temperature gradient is ridiculous. And every time you have a temperature gradient that extreme, the atmosphere wants to balance it out. How does it do that? Storms, big storms, violent storms. That is what is loading up for early April, Sunday, the transition to April. We start to see the cold moderate slightly, but it is not over. Not by a long shot, because remember, the polar vortex is still split. There is another surge of cold air behind this one, and another one behind that. The pattern is locked in like a broken record. Now, let me circle back to something I mentioned earlier about April snowstorms, because this is something a lot of people are not thinking about. When you have a split polar vortex delivering cold air into the United States in early April, and you have moisture streaming up from the Gulf of Mexico on the warm side of the pattern, you get the perfect setup for late-season snowstorms. I am talking about heavy, wet, concrete-like snow that snaps tree branches and takes down power lines, the kind of snow that is way more dangerous than the fluffy powder you get in January because it is heavier and wetter. The areas most at risk for April snowstorms include the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, the northern Great Lakes, Michigan, the interior Northeast, upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and potentially even the Ohio Valley and parts of Pennsylvania. If any of those areas describe where you live, do not put away your snow shovel, do not cancel your plow contract, do not assume winter is over because the calendar says spring. And on the other side of that coin, the severe weather threat. April is historically one of the most active months for tornadoes in the United States. We typically see between 120 and 150 tornadoes in April across the country. With this pattern, where we have an amplified jet stream, abundant Gulf moisture, and strong temperature contrasts, I would not be surprised if April ends up above average for tornado activity. The Central Plains, Oklahoma, Kansas, northern Texas are always tornado alley in April. But with this pattern, the risk extends further east into Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. Now here is a timing detail that I think is important. The transition from the current zonal pattern, where the jet stream flows mostly west to east, to a more meridional pattern, where it buckles and flows north to south, looks like it happens right around March 31st to April 2nd. That is about 10 to 12 days from now. When that switch happens, the severe weather risk jumps significantly. So if you are in the central or eastern United States, mark that on your calendar, late March into early April. That is when the pattern flips and the severe weather engine turns on. I also want to talk about something that does not get enough attention: the freeze-thaw cycle. For those of you living in the transition zone between the warm and cold air masses, and that is a huge swath of the country right now from roughly the 37th parallel northward, you are dealing with temperatures that swing from below freezing at night to the 50s or even 60s during the day. That cycle is devastating for infrastructure. Roads crack and potholes multiply overnight. Water mains that were stressed during winter can finally fail. Foundations shift. Roofs that took a beating from ice and snow start leaking as ice dams form and reform. If you have not inspected your property for winter damage yet, do it now before the next round of freezing and thawing makes things worse. For the farmers and ranchers watching, and I know there are a lot of you, this pattern is tough on agriculture. The warm spells trick plants into thinking spring has arrived. Buds open on fruit trees. Winter wheat starts to green up and grow. Early planted crops break through the soil. And then the cold blast arrives and kills everything. Frost damage to peach and apple orchards in the mid-Atlantic and the southeast is a real concern. Cherry blossoms that have already emerged in the warmer areas could be destroyed. If you have already seen buds on your trees, you need to have a frost protection plan ready. Whether that is smudge pots, wind machines, overhead sprinklers, or covering young plants, do it now before the cold arrives. For livestock producers, make sure animals have adequate shelter and windbreaks. Those wind chill values in the teens and single digits are dangerous for newborn calves and lambs. This is peak calving and lambing season, and losing animals to exposure is a real financial hit. Make sure water sources are not freezing over. Make sure bedding is dry and deep. I also want to mention something for pet owners. When these cold blasts hit, outdoor pets are at risk too. If your dog or cat is normally outdoors, bring them inside during the coldest nights. Frostbite can occur on ears, paws, and tails in surprisingly short amounts of time when wind chill values drop below zero. Even dogs with thick coats can be at risk when wind chill makes it feel like -10 or -15 degrees. And antifreeze, which people sometimes use as temperatures drop, is extremely toxic to pets. Keep it out of reach and clean up any spills immediately. For those of you with health conditions, particularly heart conditions, asthma, or respiratory issues, these extreme temperature swings can be dangerous. Going from a warm house into extreme cold causes blood vessels to constrict rapidly, which raises blood pressure. Shoveling heavy wet snow, which is exactly the type of snow the Northeast will be getting, is one of the leading causes of heart attacks during winter weather events. If you must shovel, take breaks. Push the snow rather than lifting it. And if you feel any chest tightness, shortness of breath, or pain in your arm, stop immediately and call for help. Now let me also address the water situation because this pattern has implications there too. The heavy snow events in the Northeast are actually adding to snowpack in areas that already have above average snow on the ground. When spring finally does arrive in earnest, all that snow has to melt. And if it melts quickly, which can happen if we get a sudden sustained warm-up after weeks of cold, you are looking at flooding potential. Rivers in Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and upstate New York need to be watched carefully in late April and May. If you live in a flood-prone area in northern New England, now is the time to check your flood insurance and make sure your basement sump pump is working. On the other side of the country, the heat dome in the southwest is exacerbating drought conditions. When you have temperatures over 100 degrees in mid-March, evaporation rates are through the roof. Soil moisture that built up during any winter precipitation events gets baked out of the ground. Fire danger increases. If you are in Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, or Nevada, wildfire preparedness should be on your radar. Make sure your defensible space around your property is cleared. Have your go bag ready. Know your evacuation routes. All right, let me cover a few more cities that I have not mentioned yet because I want this to be as comprehensive as possible. And if your city has not been called out yet, stay with me. It might be in this section. Rapid City, South Dakota, 52 degrees today, but dropping into the 20s by next Friday. Billings, Montana, 54 today, but expect significant cold by end of next week. Great Falls, Montana, 57 today. Missoula, 48. Helena, 43. Cheyenne, Wyoming, 52 today. Jackson, Wyoming, 26 degrees and sunny. Casper, 54. Pocatello, Idaho, 35. Idaho Falls, 38. Boise, 51, but we'll see ups and downs all week. Bend, Oregon, 38. Medford, Oregon, 42. Pendleton, 53. Walla Walla, 52. Ellensburg, 48. Wenatchee, 50. Yakima, 53. These mountain and intermountain west cities will see some of the wildest swings because they sit right in the path where the competing air masses battle. Moving south. Amarillo, Texas, 60 today. Lubbock, 54. Midland, Odessa, 70. El Paso, 56. Albuquerque, 52. Santa Fe, 48. Roswell, 53. Las Cruces, 52. Flagstaff, Arizona, 31 degrees today, 20 below average for this time of year. Prescott, 48. Sedona, 66. Yuma, 68. Sierra Vista, 68. These desert and high desert cities show the range from freezing in Flagstaff to near 70 in the low deserts. In the Appalachian region, Morgantown, West Virginia, 58 degrees, Charleston, West Virginia, 57, Huntington, 57, Clarksburg, 57, Roanoke, Virginia, 53, Lynchburg, 52, Charlottesville, 50, Harrisonburg, 58, Staunton, 60, Bristol, 54, Kingsport, Tennessee, 45, Johnson City area, similar readings. These mountain communities will feel the cold blasts more intensely than the lowlands, and snow is always possible at elevation even when rain is falling in the valleys. Across the upper Great Plains, Williston, North Dakota, 43, Minot, 38, Dickinson, 47, Aberdeen, South Dakota 41, Huron area, similar to Aberdeen, Mitchell the 40s. These locations will be ground zero for the Friday cold blast with some of the lowest wind chill values in the entire country. Let me also mention a few key cities in the Florida interior and Gulf Coast that people often overlook. Lakeland, 64 degrees, Sebring, 66, Okeechobee, 72. That is significantly warmer than the coasts in some cases. Destin, 60, Fort Walton Beach, 60, Panama City, 60, Pensacola, 62. The Florida Panhandle and Big Bend region can actually see some of the cooler temperatures in the state and are not immune to cold fronts when they push through. And for the Pacific Northwest folks who might be feeling left out of this discussion, your pattern is different but still active. Seattle is dealing with light rain today at 54 degrees. Portland, 54 with passing clouds. Olympia, 53 with light rain. Bellingham, 53 with light rain and fog. Tacoma, 53 with light rain. The Pacific Northwest will continue to see periodic rain events through the end of March, but you are largely shielded from the extreme cold and severe weather plaguing the rest of the country. Your bigger concern is continued mountain snowpack building, which is actually great news for summer water supply, but could contribute to flooding during spring snowmelt. In the Deep South, Mobile, Alabama, 60, Dothan, 58, Tallahassee, 54, Gainesville, Florida, 60, Ocala, 61, Daytona Beach, 67, Melbourne, Florida, 68, Fort Myers, 66, Naples, 66, Sarasota, 66, Bradenton, 66, Cape Coral, 66, Port St. Lucie, 63, Vero Beach, 71, Stewart, 63, Boca Raton, 64. The Gulf Coast and Florida are in decent shape right now, but even you need to keep an eye on those severe weather threats pushing through the Tennessee Valley on Sunday. For the Carolinas, Greenville, South Carolina, 55, Spartanburg, 59, Columbia, 52, Myrtle Beach, 55, Wilmington, North Carolina, 56, Fayetteville, 52, Greensboro, 56, Asheville, 44, Boone, 56. These areas will see the tug of war between warming and cooling through the week, and a few more I want to make sure I hit. Binghamton, New York, 36, Elmira, 34, Ithaca, 40, Cooperstown, 37, Plattsburgh, 32, Presque Isle, Maine, 32 with light snow, Lake Placid, 28. These northern New York and northern New England locations are deep in winter still and will stay that way through the end of the month. All right, I have covered a tremendous amount of ground in this video. Let me recap the key takeaways because I want to make sure everyone walks away knowing exactly what to expect. First, this weekend, 2 days of severe weather. Today, Friday through Sunday. Tornadoes, large hail, damaging winds. Risk areas include Ohio, West Virginia, southwestern Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, and surrounding states. Peak timing for tornadoes is this afternoon between 3 and 5 Eastern Time and again Sunday evening. Second, 5 separate snow events for the Northeast between now and the end of March. Heavy wet snow, freezing rain, and persistent cold. The Northeast is running 5 to 12 degrees below average, and that is not changing anytime soon. Third, the heat dome in the Southwest is producing record-breaking heat. Temperatures over 105 degrees in mid-March. This heat is part of the same pattern driving the cold blasts in the East. Fourth, next week features a wild temperature roller coaster. Monday and Tuesday bring a modest cold blast. Wednesday and Thursday, the heat dome rebuilds. Friday and Saturday deliver a much stronger cold blast with wind chill values below zero in the northern plains. Fifth, the polar vortex is split and not healing. This means Arctic air surges will continue into April. Late season snowstorms and severe weather are both likely in the first 2 weeks of April. Sixth, the pattern shifts around March 31st to April 2nd. The jet stream goes from a flat zonal flow to an amplified meridional flow. That is when severe weather activity ramps up significantly across the central and eastern United States. Seventh, prepare now. Stock up on supplies. Review your severe weather plan. Keep winter gear accessible. Check on elderly neighbors and family members. Have backup plans for outdoor events. Do not let the calendar fool you into thinking winter is over. If you found this breakdown helpful, share it with someone in your family or your neighborhood who needs to know. Weather information saves lives when people act on it. Drop your city in the comments and I will make sure your area gets specific coverage in the next update. The more specific you are with your location, the better I can serve you with accurate, localized forecasts. Here is what is coming in the next video, and I promise you, you do not want to miss this one. I will have detailed April severe weather outlooks, including specific timing windows for potential tornado outbreaks across the central United States. I will cover the latest model runs for the early April pattern change. I will have updated snow forecasts for the Northeast, and I will answer questions from the comments about specific cities and regions. There is a potential multi-day severe weather event setting up in the first 2 weeks of April that could be one of the most significant of the spring season. I will have the full breakdown, including risk areas, timing, and what you need to watch for. That video is going to be packed with critical information. One more thing before I go. I have been hearing from a lot of you in the comments about how crazy this winter has been, how you have never seen weather like this, how the swings feel more extreme than anything in your memory. I hear you. And whether this is your first wild spring or your 50th, the advice is the same. Stay informed, stay prepared, take care of each other. That is what communities do. For everybody across the country, please take this seriously. Check on your neighbors, especially those who live alone. Make sure your family knows the severe weather plan. Where do you go if a tornado warning sounds? Where is your emergency kit? Is your flashlight charged? Do you have enough water and food for 72 hours? These are basic questions that save lives when the weather turns dangerous. I will see you in the next update. Stay safe out there. But wait. One more thing before you click away. I want to leave you with some specific action items based on where you live, because general advice is helpful, but specific steps are what actually keep people safe. If you live in the severe weather risk area today, that is Ohio, West Virginia, southwestern Pennsylvania, northeastern Kentucky, charge your phone right now. Make sure severe weather alerts are turned on. Have a plan for where you go in your home if a tornado warning is issued. Interior room, lowest floor, away from windows. Put shoes by your bed tonight in case something happens while you are sleeping. Flying debris and broken glass are the #1 cause of tornado injuries. If you live in the Northeast and you are about to get hit with multiple rounds of snow, gas up your vehicle today. Make sure you have at least 3 days of food and water at home. Check your medications and refill any prescriptions that are running low before the weekend. If you lose power, you do not want to be scrambling to find essentials. Have flashlights, batteries, and a battery-powered or hand crank weather radio accessible, not packed away in the garage. Accessible. And if you have a generator, make sure it has fuel and test it before you need it. Never run a generator inside your home or garage. Carbon monoxide poisoning kills people every single winter storm. If you live in the Southwest where the heat dome is parked, stay hydrated even if you do not feel thirsty. Wear sunscreen. Check on elderly neighbors. Make sure outdoor pets have shade and fresh water at all times. If you are hiking or doing outdoor activities, carry more water than you think you need. Heat exhaustion can sneak up on you fast in mid-March when your body is not yet acclimated to summer temperatures. If you live in the transition zone across the central United States, have both warm weather and cold weather clothing easily accessible. It sounds silly, but when temperatures can swing 50 degrees in a few days, you need layers ready to go. Keep your car emergency kit stocked with blankets, water, snacks, and a phone charger. If a cold blast hits while you are on the road, you want to be prepared. If you are a parent with children in school, make sure the school knows your contact information is up to date. Talk to your kids about what to do during a tornado drill or a weather emergency at school. It only takes a few minutes, and it could be the most important conversation you have this month. And finally, for everyone, share this information. Text your family members in other states and let them know what is coming. Post it on your community social media pages, print it out, and give it to your neighbor who does not use the internet. Weather forecasts only save lives when people hear them and act on them. Be the person in your community who spreads the word. That is all I have for today. Remember, drop your city and state in the comments. I read every single comment, and your location helps me prioritize coverage in the next update. The more I know about where my viewers are, the better I can serve you with forecasts